children from a school in the Arab village of Taibe.
Toward peace. We are going toward peace. We are walking on the path of brotherhood, on the path of concord, toward peace.
Shimon Peres, Israeli Minister of Defense.
I believe the Arabs who live in Israel should, and I hope to, consider themselves as Israeli citizens.
Menahem Begin, Israeli Prime Minister.
We want to live together with the Arabs in equality of rights, in peace, in human dignity.
Ariel Sharon, Israeli Minister of Agriculture.
All together, during all the time, we were very careful not to harm the local population and not to confiscate land.
Toward peace, toward peace. In 1948, the Zionists, with international imperialism and the Arab reaction as accomplice, succeeded in dispersing most of the Palestinian people and take over their land. But on the other hand, about 160,000 Palestinian Arabs remained on their own land because circumstances would not permit them to drive these people out. From the first day of the occupation, the military government's attempts to get rid of this minority have never ceased. They have employed measures of repression, of national, religious, and class oppression. They have confiscated the lands. Despite all this, this minority has grown. It has become 500,000 Arabs concentrated in the north of the country who know how to defy and resist. The Black Book, published by the Regional Committee for the Defense of Arab Territories in Israel, well documents the revolt which took place on the Day of the Land, March 30th, 1976. This film is the cinematographic adaptation of the Black Book. We shot the visual documentation on location before and during the observances of the first commemoration for the martyrs fallen during the Day of the Land.
ما حدث في يوم الأرض 76 لم يكن اصطدامات وإنما كان عدوانا صريحا وسافرا من قبل الشرطة حرس الحدود والجيش على السكان العرب.
Tawfik Zayat, the mayor of Nazareth and deputy in the Israeli parliament.
باستفزازات أي طرف من الأطراف الشعبية وإنما كان جريمة مدبرة ومخطط لها سلفا وقد أعلنت الأوساط الحاكمة قبل يوم الأرض بعدة أيام أن المقصود أنه في ذلك اليوم سيجري.
The events of the Day of the Land in 1976 were not simply clashes. They were measures of manifest, flagrant aggression of the police and the border guard against the Arab citizenry. They were not accidental crimes, nor did they happen following a provocation from the population. They were instead crimes premeditated and planned in advance. Some government circles had warned that the Arab inhabitants in Israel would be dealt a harsh lesson. Numerous victims of this aggression termed the police operations as an extension of the occupation which took place after the one in 1948. Since then, the national oppression carried out against us, most harshly in the form of confiscating Arab lands, could not fail to lay the groundwork for events like those of the Day of the Land and the strike called for that occasion.
نعيش في بلدة عدد سكانها 1000 نسمة. هذه البلدة ومنطقة التي تسمى منطقة 9.
Jamal Tarabay, mayor of Sakhnin.
الحنطة والشعير والبندورة وهي أيضا مغروسة بأشجار الزيتون.
We have a little town of 12,000 inhabitants who live on agriculture. The Batuf Plain and the so-called Zone 9 are the most fertile lands. On this last sector, we grow corn, wheat, vegetables, and olive trees. Zone 9 belongs to 3 small towns, Sakhnin, Araba, and Darhana. It has an area of nearly 18,000 dunums. When the Army of Occupation started using this zone for maneuvers about 20 years ago, our conflict began. We could go to the zone only with special permits. A year ago, the Israeli authorities communicated that access to the zone was absolutely forbidden because it had become a completely military area. These were things not to be believed. It was obvious that they wanted to set up new Israeli settlements and take away from us all right to our lands. Therefore, we could not give in to this. We called a big popular assembly in Sakhnin, and tens of thousands of Arabs in Israel came to it. We protested against closing off the lands as against their confiscation. We decided on a strike for the 30th of March, the Day of the Land.
الأضرار الناجمة عن منطقة 9 كمنطقة عسكرية إنه الجيش بيجري فيها التمرينات العسكرية والسكان بيمارسوا عملهم الزراعي ولكن نتيجة أو من جراء مخلفات الجيش
Mahmoud Namne, mayor of Araba.
Considerable damage was done by the militarization of Zone 9. The military maneuvers are a constant danger which threatens the farmers working their land. The bombs and unexploded shells have caused a lot of accidents. From 1944 to today, more than 100 people have died here. The latest victim was my son, Mahmoud, who was killed on the 1st of June, 1975. I'll show you his picture. He was only 12 years old.
في سخنين سقط 3 شهداء وكان 72 جريح وكان 64 معتقل في ذلك اليوم.
Sakhnin lost 3 martyrs that day. There were 72 injured and 64 arrested. The inhabitants clashed with the army. They threw rocks and got bullets in return.
A professor from Darhana.
اللي مبينة على قبالنا ابتداء من الجبال المزروعة بشجار الزيتون زائد الجبال جبل المغار زائد الجبال التي تقع جنوبي الرامي زائد الجبل المقابل.
This is Zone 9 that the Day of the Land was proclaimed for. It begins with those hills of olive trees and includes Mount Magar. the chain of mountains to the south of Rame, the hills in front, the plain nearby, and the mountains near Carmael, along with the plain where the military camp is.
هذه المنطقة ترجع تسميتها إلى عهد الانتداب البريطاني وهي
The designation of this zone goes back to the time of the British Mandate. Now the zone is closed by order of the Defense Ministry with the excuse of holding military maneuvers here. But as we see,
كما نشاهد أنهم بنوا هنا مستعمرة ناحل سلمون
they have built the Nahal Salomon colony.
التي يمنع على الفلاحين
The area off limits to the farmers is bordered by this recently built road.
الذي شق حديثا وهنالك خوف يراود السكان بأن هذا الحد هو حد زاحف إلى أن
What all the inhabitants are afraid of is that this border will advance right up to the houses in our village.
A resident of Sakhnin.
About 6 o'clock, I saw the army arriving from the north. I was standing in my courtyard. My husband and children were still asleep. A soldier told me to go into my house, and I told him that the courtyard is a part of my house. He ordered me to go inside and insulted me, and I said to him, "Get out of our land," insulted him back. Then the soldier struck me with his club. I grabbed a piece of iron and hit him on the head.
Her husband.
ضابط البوليس أخذني على المركز مضوني 20 بصمة وروحت ثاني يوم رجعت على الأرض لقيت فيها.
The military police took me into the police station where they forced me to sign a lot of statements. The day after, when I came back to my land, I found 4 tanks driving around on it. So I began throwing handfuls of earth over my head. Then the tanks went away, but the land was already ruined. To get to my land, I needed a special permit, which had to be renewed. In January 1976, they refused to renew it. Since then, it has not been possible to get to my land, the land that provides a living for me, my husband, and our 6 children. We cannot go on like this. Our children do not go to school anymore because there is no income.
A resident of Sakhnin.
This land is mine. It was my father's and my grandfather's. It is about 51 dunums. Despite the fact that it was a single piece of land, they divided it into 2 zones, A and B. They told me I could get to the first zone without any permit, but to get to the second, I needed a special permit. But before long, I found that I needed a permit to go to both zones.
A resident of Derhana.
On the morning of the Day of the Land, I was shot in the leg. Along with 7 or 8 other injured people who had passed out, they took me to the hospital in Afula, where they operated on me. On the first morning, the army came in with tanks. They set up a barbed wire compound that they forced people into, striking them with rifles and clubs.
بالبواريد وبالعصي فاجا واحد من الاولاد اللي هناك انجرح صار يقولوا مات جار إلنا فصاروا ينادوا عليه عشان عنده سيارة مشان اخذه على المستشفى ركبته بالسيارة قاموا الجيش قوص السيارة قوص الموتور.
One person was seriously injured and his relatives asked me to take him to the hospital in my car. But the soldiers shot at the motor and the tires, so we could not move. They shot a friend who was helping me in the knee. He is now lame and is unemployed because of it.
عندما وصلنا لبيت عبد الخطيب كان هناك أخرى جرحى آخرين رفعناهم على السيارة.
The friend.
وعندما تحركت السيارة للخلف كان الجيش وراها وأطلق النار وعطل.
Just when I got to Adel's house, the tractor driver, we found other wounded people that we took into the car. While we were backing up, the army shot at the tires to stop us from taking them to the hospital. I grabbed one of the wounded to take him to my house, but I was shot in the knee, and so I went down with the wounded man.
طلعت لقيت الخط الكهرباء مقطوع باب داري. وقفت أحذر الناس ما يقتربوش لخط الكهرباء خوفا ما حدا يتأذى منهن. وفجأة اتصابت 3 رصاصات في إجري.
When I found the electric line broken next to the door of my house, I tried to warn the other people not to come near so that nobody would get hurt. I was immediately shot 3 times in my foot. They took me to the hospital of the Sacred Family in Nazareth. They operated on me 5 times. The results, 3 toes gone and also a loss of sensitivity.
قعدت في المستشفى 4 أشهر و10 أيام. بعدها رجعت للبيت وفجأة تفاجأنا من وزارة الدفاع إنه هي.
After 4 months and 10 days in the hospital, I went home and found a letter from the Ministry of Defense. They charged me with having violated the curfew, despite the fact that nobody knew anything about this curfew. They communicated that they are going to take us to criminal court. I might wind up in jail instead of getting the compensation owed me.
The father of the martyr Khadija Shawahne from Sakhnin.
I told the boys not to go out of the house, but when he heard the shooting, my son Khalid, 10 years old, went out. I immediately asked my daughter Khadija to go after him. When she did not come back, their mother followed them. The moment I saw her, I called to her. When she turned around, a soldier pointed his rifle at her. I begged him not to shoot, but he shot her in the back. She immediately fell down, and I passed out. Khadija died in the hospital.
The father of martyr Mohsen Taha.
He died defending his own land. It is an honor.
An eyewitness account.
The martyr Mohsen Taha and some companions were here. They wanted to make sure that the occupation army was not following them anymore. 2 shots hit him in the forehead. Toward peace. Toward peace.
The wife of Tawfiq Zayad, the deputy from Nazareth.
The army surrounded the house. Someone gave the order, in Hebrew naturally, to burn down my house and arrest anyone inside. Of course, they thought that my husband was at home. Everybody knows what the situation is here after the Democratic election in Nazareth. Going down to see what was happening, I saw about 20 soldiers who were already in the courtyard. I immediately closed the doors and windows and barred the entryway. I screamed at them, reminding them that it was forbidden to enter this house, and the law protects the home of the mayor of a deputy. I said, as long as I am here, I will not let you in.
فبالطبيعة الطيبة كجزء من كل مجموعة.
A resident of Taibe.
والإضراب كان ناجح لدرجة إنها السلطة هسترت وطلعت وقامت في عملية اعتقال وضرب وقتل لدرجة إنها ارتكبت جريمة حيث إنه رموا برصاصهم الغادر.
Like all the other Arab towns, Taibe went on strike that day. It was a successful strike. The authorities were hysterical. The police carried out a number of arrests, beating people up and murdering. They shot the martyr Haifat Zuhairi. He was from Nur Shams, and he was killed on the streets of Taibe. You know that we communists have had a lot of experience with popular struggles. The struggle we conducted that day, together with our Arab masses, was a just and legitimate one. Because I am also a communist, a police official said to me, "Ah, you are a communist. Today you will learn to stop being one." He brought in a glass of boiling water and threw it in my face. Then he brought the glass up against my nose and hit it with his knee. He broke my nose. I bled some more after losing blood from the injuries caused by the beating they gave me in the half-track they had loaded me on. For 15 days in prison, they tortured us in such a way that not even the Nazi butchers were capable of doing. Then instead of taking us to court, they brought the judge to the prison, where he signed our arrest orders. They were afraid that the people would see us and notice the marks left by torture on our bodies.
يطلع لنا أمر توقيف عشان ما يجيبونا قدام الناس ويشوفوا آثار الضرب.
Toward peace. Toward peace.
A resident of Derhan.
فحص على أجسامنا وشاف العلامات الزرقاء وسجل عنده ولكن ما اعطاناش ولا أي علاج.
A doctor examined us. He saw the bruises, he noted them, but he did not treat them. An officer by the name of Levin asked me what my religion was. Christian, I told him. Ah, Christian. What are you doing here then, he said. I told him that they had brought us here. They had treated us worse than all the others. Everybody was released after 2 days, paying a bond of 500 Israeli lira. Only my brother and I were released after 8 days and a 3,000 Israeli lira bond.
بيوم الأرض بعد ما خلصت شغلتي بالنهار ذهبت للمدرسة بالليل.
A shepherd from Sakhnin.
I finished my work on that day of the land, and in the evening, as usual, I went to the night school. But about 6 o'clock in the morning, 15 men from the military, police, and border guards came into my house and beat me. Then they took me to a police post where I was beaten again, and they had called me an Arab communist dog.
بعد هيك أخذونا لطبرية. قعدنا يومين بطبرية وطلبنا منهم دكتور.
Then they took me, together with other citizens, to the prison in Tabaria, where we stayed 2 days. We were losing blood after the beatings that they had given us, and they wouldn't let us see a doctor. Then they took us to the Acre prison, where they drew up statements in Hebrew, which we do not know. I asked that they at least read me the statements, and they refused.
ما قبلوش يقروها وقالوا لنا روحوا.
Tawfiq Zayad, mayor of Nazareth and deputy.
The results of the Day of the Land were successful. Thanks to that day, all the honest forces were unified. All the Arab groups struck by the policy of national oppression carried out by the Israeli authorities. Thanks to this day, the solidarity between the democratic and progressive Jewish forces and the just struggle of the Arab masses were broadened. Thanks to this day, there were worldwide reports which brought to light the dimensions of the Israeli authorities' criminal policy against the Arab masses.
وبالإضافة إلى ذلك كان لها تأثير عالمي كشفت عن أبعاد وأعماق هذه السياسة الإجرامية المنتهجة من قبل السلطات الإسرائيلية تجاه الجمهورية العربية وأظهرت للرأي العام العالمي واليهودي بشكل خاص أنه إذا فشلت
If those who govern Israel have failed to make peace with the 500,000 Arabs considered Israeli citizens, then how can they succeed with their policy in making peace with the Arab peoples?
The first anniversary of the Day of the Land.
الصحف خلال الأسبوعين الأخيرين تكتب بأن البوليس وحرس الحدود جاهز من أجل الدخول إلى القرى العربية لأن هناك
Abdul Hamid Abdou Aita, mayor of Taibe.
Over the last 2 weeks, the newspapers have been saying that the police and the border guard had been all set to come into the Arab villages because preparations were going on for the Day of the Land, because there were those who might compromise security. The Arab masses, however, do not want any sabotage. There were other acts of provocation, like setting fire to the bus belonging to the EGED company, an act I think that can be attributed to certain people who want to provoke us.
أن هنالك عناصر مشبوهة تحضر الاستفزازات وسوف نقوم بتحذير الجماهير حتى
I say this as a responsible person and as a mayor. We will put the masses on the alert so that every provocation will fail.
On the sidelines of the first anniversary, Jalal Abu Touma, mayor of Baqa al-Garbiya.
At 8:30 on the 30th of March, 1977, the first anniversary of the Day of the Land, the deputy mayor telephoned the police and renewed the city authorities' request for the police not to enter the village. But about 10 o'clock, we knew that the security forces had already come in and gathered near the school. There was a huge police and army turnout with tanks, and a helicopter was flying over the school where about 2,000 students were studying.
أنا سمعت واحد من أولاد عمي صرخ يقول الجيش الجيش أجوا جيت أسد الباب كان واحد من الجيش دفع الباب لزقني في الخزانة سحبني من شعري وصار جرجر فيي وبدا فيي بكسات.
I heard shouting that the army had come in. I had not had time to bar the door when a soldier pushed it in and dragged me away by the hair, slugging me and kicking me in the stomach and on my back. These are the marks. They hit me with a billy club on the legs and on my sides, again and again until I passed out.
بعدين لما ضربوني في العصي وفي شلاليط وكل هاي الاشياء وكم واحد ضربني في العيار 5 كيلو.
After hitting me and beating me, a soldier picked up a 5-kilogram weight from a scale and threw it at me. It hit my hand and broke it. They ordered me to go outside, and there they went on beating me.
ضربوني على راسي على عيني وعلى ظهري وعلى جري مسكوني بكال اسمها خرط البندقية قالوا مضرب فيها على ظهري وعلى بطني بعد ما شافوني نمتي تعبيت.
With a rifle stock they hit me on the head, on my eye, on my back. When I could not move anymore, they picked me up by my hands and feet and slung me against the wall. I regained consciousness in the hospital. They treated us like barbarians. like they treat the blacks in Rhodesia, in South Africa, in the United States, without us having done anything wrong. All of a sudden, the army came in and beat us without let-up. We condemned these savage acts. They beat me all over my body. You can still see the treated marks.
كل هذا الدول شايفينه هذا محل مدهنون فيه دهون فيه هوايه كل هذا محل ضرب الجيش بقاش معنا شيء نقاوم فيه احنا عن حالنا اعمال وحشيه هاي واعمال بربريه وفي برضه هو في راسي هون ضربونا هون وتين في راسي اعمال وحشيه هاي كلها واحنا مستلكر هاي الاعمال كلها.
بالنسبه للسنه هذه
The mayor of Taibe.
للدفاع عن الارض العربيه لم تعلن الاضراب لهذه السنه. انعقد مؤتمر في الناصرة قبل حوالي شهر وقررت اللجنة القطرية.
This year there will not be any strike. This was decided on by the Regional Committee for the Defense of Arab Territories in Israel. An assembly held last month in Nazareth decided to commemorate the first anniversary of the Day of the Land by recalling the martyrs who died that year, the victims of terrorism, and making the Day of the Land a day of unity for the Arab masses and the democratic Jewish forces.
Hear, let all the world hear. We suffer hunger. We go around naked. They will cut us to pieces. We will eat the earth of our stricken lands. We will die, but we will never bow down to force, before the phantom, before the cannon. No, nor will even our child give way. Tawfiq Zayad.
وضع السقف بين 30 من آذار سنة 1976 حتى 30 من آذار الجاري كبر شعبنا كثيرا، أصبحت له قامة تطاول السماء.
From the 30th of March 1976 to the 30th of March 1977, our people have grown greatly. They have grown more than they did in all the years of the occupation. Thanks to our martyrs, thanks to Muhsin Taha and his brothers.
وصدور أبناء شعبنا التي تصدت رصاص الشرطة بأيديها العزاء وبالحجارة التي.
Thanks to our arms, to our bravery, and the bravery of our people's children who faced police bullets with stones from the road. And now we say to those who have unjustly encroached upon us that we still have strong arms and that our roads are still full of stones. If those who govern Israel have failed to make peace with the 500,000 Arabs considered Israeli citizens, then how can they succeed with their policy in making peace with the Arab peoples? Tawfiq Zayal.